Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Stars and Garters. I am Katie Pettit, and today we have a very special guest returning for another Marvel Monday. This is, once again, Mckayla Vogt.
Hi!
Yep, very happy to have her back for another Marvel Monday. And just real quick before we start, I would like to say that I am sorry for missing all of last week because I was gone, but I did say that somebody might take it over for me, and they did not. So, just have nothing. But it's fine. So, anyway, besides that, for today's Marvel Monday, we are going to be reviewing the film Black Widow. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. We're doing this because one, we watched it recently, and two, like it feels like something we can both talk about pretty well. We know it's not like new or anything, but it's still it's fun to review stuff. So we're gonna do it. All right.
I dressed up as Yelena for Halloween. So
Yep. She makes a very good Yelena, you guys. One day we had this event at our CC campus where we got to dress up as storybook characters, and I always take that to mean any book characters, so I always do like comic book characters, and I dressed up as Kate Bishop and she was Yelena. And it was awesome. We didn't plan it at all. We were just like, what? But yeah, that was fun. All right, let's dive right into it.
Yes.
Okay, so the first thing I had was just a quick question because I thought it might be on some people's minds, or it's just a common concern, I guess, with female solo superhero movies is that it's going to turn out to be feminist. So, did you think that Black Widow turned into a feminist kind of movie?
I would say there's a lot of female empowerment, but I wouldn't call it feminist. I don't feel like it pushed an agenda in that way.
Yep, I would agree. I just want to see what you thought. My personal thoughts are that I think that people can get really worried about female superhero movies and sometimes project feminism onto it that's not actually there. So, but I thought this movie did a really good job of just making making cool characters. Doesn't matter if they're like male or female. It's just like these are cool people. Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it definitely did that really well.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't know the comics as well as you do, clearly, but I feel like it stayed relatively okay with the comic.
Yeah, I think so. It's very interesting the way it connects. And I don't think, Black Widow was I don't think she's usually been a feminist thing in the comics. It was just she was there, she was a female superhero, and everyone was fine with it. So, yeah. But cool, we're on the same page there. I feel like some people might have different opinions, but I feel like this one, not too many people were like on it about being feminist. Like Captain Marvel usually gets that kind of brunt. I think there weren't,
Like
there wasn't.
Marvel's movie was
Yeah.
much more feminist than
Mm.
Black Widow.
Yeah, I think this movie it doesn't get as much feminist stuff, but especially with like the kind of people we hang out with, it might that's just a concern that we have um, for movies today. But I do think that this did a very good job of just keeping it simple.
Definitely, it did.
All right. So now that we've got that out of the way, got those. Let's just talk about what we thought about the general plot. So it's a prequel. Natasha's sort of middle of the story, backstory kind of deal. Very interesting to see. Just the placement of the movie in the MCU was very interesting. So what did you think about that? How it fits in with the rest of the universe?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the way it fit in with the rest of the MCU universe was like, okay, we have all these other characters, and the movies in general explain what's going on in their lives pretty well, and we
Mm-hmm.
understand their stories. But there's this big black hole as far as Natasha's story goes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just kind of smack it in the middle of everything
Yeah.
all at once.
Right.
Beginning is far before anything.
Mhm.
And, kind of the main idea of the movie and most of the movie is all in this weird in between phase for the Avengers where we don't know what's going on with
Mhm.
any of them
Mhm.
or where the Avengers are at,
Yeah.
friendship wise in their
Mhm.
family um, situation they have.
Right.
And then the Easter eggs kind of the at the end kind of fill in some other gaps
Yeah.
as well. So it's like you get the end clip that like fills in one gap
Mhm.
between two movies, and then you get the Easter egg with Yelena that branches to an entire new series.
Yeah. I I think they definitely ran the risk. They definitely ran the risk of it becoming confusing because of where they put it in, but I feel like with the choices they made, they did a very good job of not making it confusing and actually like not just filling in a lot of Black Widow's backstory, they actually filled in a lot of other holes like in the MCU, like you were saying um about like that kind of uh murky time with the Avengers after Civil War where we didn't really know what was going on. And it gives us some backstory there. I feel like they did a very good job of choosing where to fill in and not just have it become super convoluted and like, oh my goodness, where are we in the plot? But it just did a good job of like, hey, this is where we are. The main story is about Natasha, but also, here's where it is in the bigger universe.
Here's what happened to the Avengers after their
Right.
giant family feud,
Yeah.
but it's all about the women.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think I personally can't think of a time where it did get confusing for me. Um, you know, I don't, maybe that's because I keep up with Marvel. I mean, maybe I feel like maybe it might get confusing to someone who doesn't know the universe as well. So,
Yeah, I feel like if you watch it out of context, like you
mhm,
haven't seen the other movies, it
yeah,
definitely could be confusing.
yeah,
But if you keep up with Marvel and you've seen the other movies, it should make perfect sense
yeah,
unless you've missed something big.
right. I agree. Yeah, I think they definitely I think it should have been pretty fine for just Marvel fans. Like they should have been totally cool with it. So yeah. So my next part about the plot that I wanted to talk about was what did you think about how they handled Natasha's backstory?
Yeah, so I feel like they handled her backstory pretty well. It it's a little confusing. Like there are the 3 years that they're in America that you don't really know what shaped her,
Mhm.
um, and we don't hear as much about her time in the Red Room as
Mhm.
we do about Yelena's.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
so I feel like it kind of is more about the differences between Natasha and Yelena's time in the Red Room,
Yeah, okay, sure.
and then Yelena's time in the Red Room
Mhm.
versus Natasha's time in the Red Room.
Okay, yeah.
Ultimately, her realizing this big thing that she did
Mhm.
to make up for her childhood
Yeah.
didn't
One
happen.
second. I have to go deal with my cat. It'll take 2 seconds. I'll cut it out.
You're good.
Sorry, she was like scratching and begging and crying to get out of this room. So, all right. But yeah, it was very interesting because I personally just don't know Black Widow too well as a character. I mean, I like her. Like she's especially in the MCU, she's almost kind of a bigger deal in the MCU than she was in the comics because they place her in different situations and it gives her different opportunities to just do different things with her character. But I just didn't have that much information about her, so I didn't know where they were gonna go with this backstory. It was very interesting, but I definitely, you know, enjoyed it and was very interested by it. It was very compelling, like very hard to lose interest in what was going on there. Um, it explains a lot about her as well. I think,
Yeah.
just like if you wanted to get to know Black Widow, if she's like your favorite character, or you
Yeah.
just like her and you want to get to know more, like this movie does a great job of that. Just like
Hmm.
it tells you a lot
And
about
it
her.
definitely shows that she's had that boldness that she has. Like, I'm not gonna let anybody shove me around,
Yeah,
since
for
she
sure.
was like, she was willing to shoot the man who kind of raised her for 3 years, and
Right.
anyone
Yeah.
who came between her and Yelena.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. That was a very that I'm thinking of the scene. It's a very good scene, just like
it is.
showing. Okay, this is Natasha.
Mhm.
It's like this is who she is. Like this is how she's always been. Um, and it also like does a really um good setup with like the family, the whole family backstory that she has. Like that's not something I ever expected at all. Like I knew a little bit about like the Red Room because she had that. Scarlet Witch gave her a nightmare about it in Ultron, and then like there were
Yeah.
little bits and pieces, so I knew it was probably gonna have something like that. But her whole family, like I didn't even know it existed. I had
Mm.
no clue about it at all, and so that was just very interesting to see how they raised her like that. I will say a few of the aspects of that part of the story were a bit confusing, like how the family worked and what it was for. You know.
Mhm. I feel like for me it made sense, but
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
probably because I was already more invested in Natasha's backstory.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely is like a storyline of showing you how these kids who are raised in the Red Room are used.
Mhm.
Like, they're brought
Yeah.
up from birth and then they're put into these false families
Mhm.
that are basically a computer program
Mhm.
almost
Yeah.
to accomplish a goal,
Yeah.
all
But
undercover. And a family looks less suspicious than
mhm.
any one singular person.
Yeah.
Uh,
And like the fact that you can say all that, I feel like shows how good they did with just showing like how much she like went through to become Black Widow, like to get to like it did a very good just like taking us along and like not in a boring way either. It didn't just like give us the information. It like made us care. Like
yeah.
just yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it shows one thing that makes a big difference between like Natasha and Yelena and most of the other widows
Mhm.
is that um, they had the opportunity to learn what a normal family construct was like
Mhm.
and what a normal childhood was like. Even though Yelena
Right.
couldn't understand it, she
Mhm.
had that mentality. And
Yeah.
Natasha did as well, which I feel like is what led them to be able to rebel in the way they did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. It takes us for a ride for sure. Um did very good at that. So overall, the backstory was just very compelling. I felt like it's for a movie that like feels like it's so long in the making. Like it's like she's been a character in the MCU since the literal first Avengers movie, and like now she's got her own movie. I feel like you know they did give it justice. Like as long as it took, I feel like they brought it all to a point where I was like, okay, this was worth something. Yeah.
They definitely did. Um, I feel like she deserves a second movie, but the way they
Mm,
did that movie, the only way to do that would be to give Yelena a movie,
yep,
but it
that's
was in
true.
general a movie.
Yeah, and I mean, it's possible that they could do that with Thunderbolts because she's going to be in that. It would be
Yeah,
interesting. Um, it would be a little harder because it's not just about Yelena. There's all these other characters they have to explore. But I mean, if they wanted to look into that more, like they definitely could. They would just have to do it right and not force it to be about her. Make it seem
definitely.
natural.
Yeah.
Um, so next, I wanted to talk about. I didn't know if I wanted to put this under plot or characters, but I'm gonna put it under plot because I feel like it's just an important part of the plot. But what did you think about the villain of this movie? Because that's been a big concern about Marvel movies lately, just having one-off villains for all the solo movies. Like one big complaint about the Marvels was that Darben was not memorable, that she was just kind of there just to have a villain. and that's just been a complaint about Marvel lately. So, what did you think about Dreykov?
I feel like with Jacob, it could have been that same situation as with Marvels, where it's like, oh, this is a one-off villain, but
Mhm.
because there's been such a long-standing story with Natasha and
Mhm.
like a battle between her and Dreykov for so
Mhm.
long, and this guilt that's always weighed on her and always kind of shown in the movies, it didn't feel like a one-off villain because we all
Mhm.
had heard the name before.
Mhm.
We all knew who Dreykov was. We knew he was bad.
Mhm.
You know, we knew he was a villain. And then we get to see his villainy come to an end.
Mhm. Yeah, I thought they did actually a very good job with him because like in all fairness to Marvel, what they're going through now, it's hard to make villains that are just mainly for one hero but also still memorable. Like in a universe of big purple aliens with literal infinity stones, like it's really hard to make villains who are just for one hero and have like a more personal connection. Like that's a difficult thing to do. But when I think about it, Dreykov to me is an excellent example of how to balance what a villain can be because he's like it's very clear that he is Natasha's villain. They have a connection. It's he's hers. Like that's they have the personal connection, the personal enmity between them, and he's her villain. He's not
Mm-hmm.
that like connected to the rest of the universe. But instead of just being this one-off guy, like okay, they needed a villain that had a connection to Natasha, whatever. He's a very imposing force, and he has affected not necessarily the other superheroes that we get to see in the MCU, but we see that he's had like a bigger effect on the world
Mm-hmm.
with his with
Yeah.
the creation of the widows and the control of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can see that although he might not matter to the other specific heroes, he's a threat, like for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like he's definitely a villain that we can all, and this is a big difference. I feel like with the Marvels, the villain, no one knew. No one
Hmm.
could really
Yeah.
connect to the dislike of the villain
Hmm.
or hatred of the villain. Um, but with Black Widow, again, because it's a name we keep hearing throughout the series, and it's
Hmm.
someone we kind of already had in the back of our minds, it's
Yeah.
someone it came easy for us to hate and dislike, which is
Yeah.
what makes a villain,
Hmm.
um, which is hard to do for
Yep.
writers, is to
Yeah.
make a good villain like that, but he was really easy to hate.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's it's one thing for it's one hard task for writers to write characters that we love. It's another hard thing to write villains that we hate. So like,
exactly.
especially in a day where like for some reason everyone's trying to make all the villains sympathetic, which I mean sometimes it works. Sometimes I guess it works. But like for the main part, it's like villains are villains. Like, it's
Yeah.
you want to have a bad guy and even though maybe they have a reason, it's still you want it to be very clear and you want to root against them and you want
Yeah.
people in your fandom to not like this guy. Like I think that's definitely one of the things that the Marvels struggled with was that their villain the villain was a big struggle of that movie. It was like she was like, "Oh, okay, she exists, I guess. Oh, she has a history with Captain Marvel apparently. Oh, okay, we're already past that. Okay, whatever." It
Yeah.
was like very it felt rushed. Her as a character specifically, there were a lot of things I enjoyed about the movie, but her character just felt not important enough to
Mm-hmm.
anything. Whereas Dreykov just he felt like such
Evil. You could
yeah,
feel
exactly. It was
evil
like
that was Dreykov, and we all had this predetermined dislike for him again
yeah.
because we heard the name before. But that's where you get a difference in where you see the filmmakers doing things like they did with Falcon Winter Soldier.
Mhm.
And the villain isn't really a villain, but he's definitely
Right. Yeah.
so it's hard to create this dislike for someone that they're trying to make good and bad, and then they're turning good people bad, and it's
Mhm.
harder to follow the story than when you have someone that's already been brought up and you already have a history with, like Dreykov,
Yeah.
uh, to automatically dislike.
Yeah. And I think that the villains, the complicated villains or the hero turned villain can work if you are really, really careful with it. But
They
um
did it with like three different people, so that
yeah,
made it tricky.
yeah, it definitely, if you do it too much or you don't do it carefully, if you're like, okay, let's do this, let's try to throw something interesting, and you don't take your time and make sure, okay, this has to make sense to people or they're not gonna care. If they can't figure out why this person is bad, like, or like, oh, he used to be good, like, why is he bad now, or like who is this person even at all, they're just not gonna care. And like, if you don't care about the villain, that's gonna hurt the movie a lot. Just like,
It definitely is. It
yeah.
definitely is. And I feel like it's also a good play that, they know you care about the villain in a
Mm-hmm.
way of them not being a villain.
Mm,
And then boom, in your face, they're a villain now.
yeah.
And it's some people enjoy it and some people don't. So it's a very
Yeah.
fine line for writers
Right.
to walk.
Yeah. But all of that to say, we think that Black Widow did had a good balance. The Dreykov
Definitely.
was, they didn't try to do anything weird with him, make him sympathetic. They were just like, okay, this guy's
Dreykov
evil.
is evil and heartless and a
Yep.
sociopath, and that's all there is to it.
Yes, and Black Widow needs to take him down, and it's
She's
just
gonna
they
do it with this family construct that he designed for
exactly.
his good that's gonna tear him to shreds.
Yep, exactly. Just very, very good job, I feel like they did with that. Just the villain, everything around the villain that was built towards him, built towards that final scene with him, everything they did with him was just like, it all felt right and it made sense.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ever confused and I didn't ever not care. Like they made me care. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this guy is so evil. I hate him. I want to see her get hers." Um
Like,
so
this is what she deserves,
yeah,
not just,
exactly.
oh, okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah,
It's she
exactly, exactly.
deserves this, and we're rooting for her to
Yeah.
get this.
Yeah. For sure. Okay. The next thing I have, again, I'm not sure if this fits under plot. I don't know what it would fit under, so we're gonna stick it under plot. So I have written fire action scenes. So just like I have under that in all caps poser
Cozy.
because just like it's, I don't
You're
know.
such a
That's, I know
poser.
that's not, yeah, just you're such a poser. You're totally a poser. It just, yeah, that was a great part. I loved
Thank you.
that joke.
You flip your hair.
Yeah, just that's a great joke. I love that. Yelena is so fun. We'll talk about Yelena a lot more later, but
Yes.
yeah, I just thought about action scenes and I was like, Black Widow's a poser. Okay, but yeah, were there any particular action scenes? Because I thought they did a very good job with the action scenes in this. It was um, different, I think, from a lot of the Marvel Universe because seeing as Black Widow is a human, and she's just that. Like, she's trained and stuff, she knows how to do stuff, but she's just a human. And so this was like a lot more hand to hand kind of stuff, guns, swords, that kind of thing, and not like mystic energy blasts and stuff like that. So it was a lot different from the Marvel universe. But how do you think they did in making those action scenes work?
Yeah, definitely. So I think they did a really good job, even like bringing up the other Avengers through the action scenes. They go
Mm.
through this big, wow, I can't talk. This big fight scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting beat up and bruised. And typically in the Avengers movies, you just see, oh, they fought, they're fine, they won.
Yeah.
But it showed them having to go and take care of their injuries and like I bet Captain America doesn't have to take an Advil after a fight, like
Yeah.
things like that. It really showed a bit more of the character and the
Mm-hmm.
humanity of the character and less
For
of the
sure.
supernatural of the other characters.
Yeah.
that made it even cooler in the later fight scenes when
Mm-hmm.
they did what they did, and when Natasha intentionally got herself beat up
Mm-hmm.
and her nose broken really
Right.
badly
Yeah.
so she could fight.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they continued to have this epic battle on this
Mm-hmm.
crashing spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about it being a spaceship. It was about, how amazing they were at fighting and how they used
Yeah.
what Dracov taught them
Exactly.
against him.
There you go. Yeah. That was a great point about when that I bet Captain America doesn't have to take an Advil. Great point there. Um and about just Dreykov using what he taught them. It's just very interesting in this movie, all the action, because it's basically all about skill. Like these they have nothing to fall back on if they don't have skill. Like they don't have super strength, they don't have energy
Yeah,
blasts, they don't have anything like that. They just
they
have
have
their
each
skill.
other.
Yeah,
They have their
exactly. Yeah.
skill in each other.
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
it had to be a lot more grounded and focused in that, which I'm a sucker for big mystic fight scenes. Like I have no problem with that. I think it looks great and just it's super fun, but like also just seeing Marvel get so grounded and like have to do just like hand to hand, get down and like close up and just these kind of fight scenes was so interesting, and they definitely did it justice. And I know they've done it before, but it was like this was the whole movie. This is entirely focused on humans. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like with the other Avengers, you see them fall from the distance as they fall. And it's,
Mhm.
yeah, whatever. And then you see them fall lesser distances in the Black Widow movie, and you see that it injured the one Black Widow, and Dreykov
Mhm.
made herself terminate, right?
Mhm.
Like, you don't think of injuries like that happening to the Avengers,
Mhm.
but they can happen to Natasha.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Possible. Natasha and Hawkeye aren't superhumans,
Mhm.
although the Black Widows do have a form of the super soldier serum
Mhm.
that makes them stronger and keeps them from aging.
Right.
It's not what Steve has. It's
Mhm.
not a suit of armor like Tony has.
Mhm.
It's not a whole nother person like Banner has.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah, for sure. Very, very interesting and different. And different done well. Uh, it's. I feel like I don't know if this makes sense, but I think they also did a good job of it still feeling like Marvel, even though it was a very different take. Like they don't, like I keep saying, they don't usually do super grounded fights and stuff like that. And but they still had that feel to it. I don't know, just that something. There's something about it where it's like it's still super cool, and sometimes it was still flashy. Like sometimes they got to do cool things, even though they were just humans. Like
yeah,
and I'm pretty sure this was CGI, but there's like one point where Natasha does like she like kicks Taskmaster in like the chest and like flips off of that, which I'm almost 100% that was CGI, but it still looks really cool, and it that like just moves like that happened throughout, and it still felt like I was watching a Marvel movie.
yeah. And I mean, like, stuff like that can be done in real life, you know?
Yeah.
It's possible. It's
Yeah.
just borderline superhuman. And
Yeah.
it's showing, like, the gravity and strength that, I don't know, real people can have. And is almost
Mhm.
empowering young women to be like, hey, you can do whatever you want with your strength, you know?
Yeah.
You don't have to get beat up by anyone.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's like I was saying about just it's they have to be totally reliant on their skill. Like
Mhm.
that's just such a big deal with this movie is like they again just have nothing to fall back on if they are not, skilled. Except
Yeah.
like, their relationship for sure, but like it's not usually as focused on like just straight up strength and skill.
Yeah. And that's like Natasha does die, and like we see
Mhm.
that humanity, and I feel like for a lot of us it was this chance to see her again even though she's gone.
Mhm. Yeah,
um
for sure.
Watching it, for me, I was like, oh, she's still here, but she's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and we get to see she is human.
Mhm.
She can
Yeah.
die,
Yeah.
but
And
she can be a really awesome character and really
yeah.
strong and powerful at the same time.
Yeah. Like she's not superhuman, but she's still like totally kick butt.
Hmm.
It's yeah.
Trying to figure out other words for
Yeah.
saying other
I
versions of that, but yeah.
yeah. But yeah, for sure very interesting but still super awesome action stuff. Um okay. So next we're going to move on to kind of another sort of section, I guess, but I just want to talk about the characters just generally, because there were a lot of interesting new ones, a lot of spotlight on old ones, just
Yeah.
a lot of good character growth and stuff. So just talk about all these characters for a second. I'm saving for the best for last, if you know that what I mean by that. So just keep it inside for a second. So let's
My
just talk
girl.
about how they did with just Natasha, because
Yeah.
she's the main thing. Just how they used her character, stayed true to their character, or maybe didn't. What did you think?
Mhm. I feel like they definitely showcased who she was, from a young age to an adult, very well, you know,
Mhm.
and this like connection that she lost with her family that she regained.
Mhm.
Um, and it definitely was, I don't know, it was interesting to see all these different sides of her that we
Mhm.
haven't seen before. And we've
Mhm.
always like heard about the time before she was an Avenger when she worked with Clint and stuff and they hid in the train station. But then we actually get
Mhm.
to see it and we
Yeah.
get to like understand a part of her that we've already known more.
Mhm.
So I feel
Yeah.
like they showcased her in that way really well.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I would agree that they did a very good job here of showcasing who she was as a character. I don't think they deviated from her character anyway. I feel like sometimes you can fall into that because it's like, if you wanna. Sometimes I feel like maybe as a writer you would want the story to go in a certain way, and you would have to make the character do unnatural things for that character.
Yeah,
And I felt like they never forced they never changed her character for like story purposes. I felt like everything she did, I was like, okay, that's like what we've seen something Natasha would do. Like that's how she is, you know?
very
She's like yeah. Throughout the MCU we've seen her, she's very like bold, she's brave, she's very calculating and intelligent and all that kind of stuff. And she has a personality that we've come to know, and I think that this movie definitely showed. Also, it highlighted how she uses that, and it also kind of showed how like kind of what kind of made her that way. Some in some cases, like um and also got to show how she could like grow in some areas, like especially how like there's that whole scene where everyone's at the table and she doesn't she's very mad about how her family is acting like they're a real family. She gets really angry and she says it was never real, and Yelena says don't say that, it was real to me, and just she doesn't think that it was a real family, and she's not willing to connect with them because she knows that it was engineered. And then by the end of the movie she's accepted Yelena as her sister, and she is working together with them as a family. So
yeah,
you know, just getting her to like be a little more open, I guess, because that's something in her personality that I think maybe a, a struggle she has as a character, and it shows how she kind of gets to overcome a part of that.
mhm. I feel like the beginning of the movie showcases the family really well, and she like
Hmm.
you can tell based on how far she's willing to go to defend Yelena and keep her out of the Red Room as a
Yeah.
child.
For
that
sure.
she did definitely gain a connection to them as her parents, you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
and Yelena as her sister, and that she loved that, but in the end it hurt her, and she
Mhm.
didn't want to feel that pain again.
Yeah.
Um, and so she had to grow by leaps and bounds
Mhm.
to not necessarily as much with Yelena, but with her parents to
Mhm.
feel connected to them again in the way that she did as a child. With
Yeah.
Yelena, I feel like she always held a connection to Yelena in her heart.
Mhm.
She wouldn't have done anything with the photos. It would have been,
Yeah.
the movie wouldn't have happened. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
so I feel like that's definitely like we have this, her and Yelena definitely have this sister relationship you can see through the whole thing, but it takes
Mhm.
a lot more work for her to
Mhm.
let Melena and Melina and
Alexi?
Alexi in.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of which, that'll lead us nicely right into the next part. I wanted to talk about what you thought about Melina and Alexi, because even though they weren't the most main characters, as much as Natasha and Yelena got to be, and Dreykov, um, but they were definitely still pretty prominent, and they were brand new characters.
They were.
So,
Uh,
what did you think about how they were introduced,
yeah.
what they were like, stuff like that?
So, for me, I went into watching the movie having researched her backstory a lot because I wanted to
Nice.
So I didn't know so much about Yelena, but I did know about Alexi and Melina.
Mhm.
Um, and so getting to kind of see the family construct was very interesting.
Mhm.
Alexi has the past being the red, whatever it was, the Red
What? Yeah,
Ranger,
whatever it was.
something like that. It's
Yeah.
not important. But he has this past where it's all he is. Um, and you can definitely see that in his character throughout the whole movie, is all he cared about was that one specific role he had that was so important to him.
Mhm.
And then he had to kind of break through that outer shell and realize that's not who he was anymore,
Mhm.
and really be able to be a father figure to Natasha and Yelena.
Yeah.
And that's like why he remembered Yelena's song, is
Mhm.
because he always wanted that, but he never knew how to break through that shell of
Mhm.
I am this killer
Yeah. Yeah.
whose,
Yeah.
whose purpose is to destroy who fought Captain America,
Yeah.
but ultimately who I was to these girls as a father, and
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
was important to him as well.
Yep. Yeah. I have that word interesting. That's what I wrote down. The parents were very interesting. As a character, I feel like Melina was just a little bit, for me personally, lacking as a character. I don't know if I didn't pay attention enough. I just felt she was one of the less developed characters out of the cast. I thought, she had a role for sure, and she definitely helped in the movie, but just as like a character and like her personality and stuff, it was a little less developed. Alexei, on the other hand, I think got he was very interesting because a lot of what he does is kind of comedic relief, but then he also definitely has um a story. Like he has
Mm-hmm.
some growth and he goes through stuff in the movie. Even though he's used for comedic relief, he still has that thing of being a super soldier. That was also interesting. Another super soldier with a totally different backstory and everything. I don't
Yeah.
know how many we have now, but still, I don't think it was like a stale kind of thing because they gave him his different backstory. He was made for this certain thing, and I thought they kept it interesting with him. And I definitely just he definitely had that very distinct personality. And you just like it was very fun and also like kind of nice to see how that interacted with his daughters, with
Mm-hmm.
Yelena and Natasha, just how it was so weird and they didn't want it to happen, but it was going to happen because they all like wanted it to happen. Like
Definitely.
I think yeah, like if they were like honest, which like by the end of the movie they were, they did want it to happen. They just didn't like, you know, they
Yeah.
didn't want it to be real because they didn't like the
Hmm.
implications or whatever of
Yeah.
that.
I feel like it didn't. The movie didn't establish much of a strong connection between um, Melina and Natasha
Yeah.
at
Mhm.
all. It was
Yeah.
just she was her mom, and Natasha knew that, which I feel like
Yeah.
contributed to it. Like Natasha was never as connected as Yelena was, but I
Yeah.
feel like when Yelena bumps her knee at the beginning of the movie, like she falls over and scrapes her knee as a child,
Mhm.
and it shows clips of like Milena, showing them fireflies and taking care of
Mhm.
her. And so I feel like
Mhm.
to Yelena,
Mhm.
Melina was definitely there, was
Mm.
definitely her mother.
Gotcha.
And, same with Alexi. Alexi was always her father. That's
Mhm.
her core memory stage of her life.
Yeah.
She had Melina and Alexi. Versus
Mhm.
Natasha, she'd already had those core memory stages, and those were in
Mm.
the red room. So she
Yeah.
knew these could never be her parents. She could
Yeah.
never truly live this life, so she didn't really want to commit to it.
Mhm.
Um, which is like when Yelena gets injured at the beginning of the movie, she's very standoffish and doesn't want to
Yeah.
deal with it at all, even though
Mhm.
she loves Yelena.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and at the beginning, it's all about, Alexi and Yelena connecting. But the first thing they both get concerned about is Milena when she gets shot. You know,
Mm. Yeah,
they
that's
both
true.
have this love for her as a mother figure, which I feel like might stem from Milena growing up in the Red Room as well, is she
Yeah.
understands what Natasha's going through and what
Mhm.
Yelena's about to go through.
Yeah.
Um, and so she can connect to her in that way.
Yeah. I
But
get that for sure.
you can see where, like, Yelena wanted to give Alexia a hug when they were walking away from the crashed plane,
Right.
even though it was like, oh, no, never mind, you smell disgusting.
You're right. Yeah.
And
I mean,
Natasha,
there was still
no, you're not
yeah,
my
there was still that thing in Yelena, like Natasha has, where she was like she's still a little, um,
nephew.
a little weird about it, and she doesn't. She wants to think like her. She's trying to tell herself that it wasn't real, but Yelena definitely wanted it to be real a lot more so than Natasha. So she was able to have a way stronger connection to her parents than Natasha did.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like Natasha also always knew that her parents, she always believed her parents didn't want her. She didn't know that her mother
Mm. Mm-hmm.
was killed by the Red Room, which is
Right. Yeah.
explained in the movie if you're paying
Mm-hmm.
very, very close attention.
Right. Yeah.
Like you can piece together bits from other movies and that to figure out, oh, that's what she meant when she said that about her mother, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so she always knew that she was alone in the world and always
Mm.
identified with that and wanted to continue
Yeah.
to feel that in a way.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Yelena didn't know that going into the
Mm-hmm.
family construct and
Right.
wanted to feel it because she was a young child
Yeah. Yeah.
versus a
Definitely
pre
very young.
Natasha
Mm-hmm.
who understood life
Yeah.
more than a
Yeah.
preteen should.
Yeah. For sure.
Yelena was still
Okay.
innocent in all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay. Um. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. I have it in all caps.
Yelena,
Yelena. Oh my goodness.
my
We
girl.
love Yelena.
It's
Just I didn't know she existed, and I was just like, oh my goodness. Who is this just awesome, just super cool new character? I love her.
with the best with
I
lots of pockets.
yeah, yes. Oh my goodness. Just like I think the main thing I love about Yelena is her personality, because I think it's very cool how she's been made a very tough person. Like, she's had to go through some
Yeah.
stuff, and she's hard, like, she's tough. And she has that aspect to herself, but unlike a lot of other tough female characters, she still has a very distinct kind of fun. She's still fun. She's still like witty. She's still very just she's very like confident and stuff. But she has a very distinct personality. Like, normally if you have a tough girl, that becomes like their whole archetype, and like everything else in their personality stems from that. It's like, you get more of the Kate Bishop type. They're like spunky, a little stubborn, standoffish, and kind of like just um again, like they're just not they're a little they get this kind of different, not like the other girls kind of thing, and that turns into their whole personality. But with Yelena, she was still made to be a tough girl, but she still has a very different personality, and she's very, like, she just has her own thing, and it's not common for
Yeah,
the tough girl stereotype.
definitely. And like, given what she went through and everything she went through, she should never have been able to come out at the level of mental stability that she did. I would say,
Yeah.
like, she came out of there excited because the first thing she bought for herself was a vest with lots of pockets. If that
Yeah.
doesn't say she has a big personality, I don't know what.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know what
Had
more
this
you need
whole
for that.
dream,
Yeah.
for what she thought her family was, or what she
Mhm.
imagined it to be. And Natasha was always a part of that.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas Natasha just had gone like, well, I figured you'd escaped, and I didn't really
Yeah.
think much more of it.
Right.
Um, you know, I thought a nice
Mhm.
family adopted you and you lived a perfect life. But
Mhm.
Yelena didn't get to live a perfect life like Natasha thought she did. And,
Mhm.
you know, you can see that Yelena's hurt by that thought, but understand
Mhm.
because she's been in that place.
Yeah,
She
for
didn't
sure.
get to live this perfect life, but she imagined it. And I
Mhm.
think that's what kept her humane in the way that she stayed humane and spunky and
Yeah.
bubbly and just like,
Yeah.
we're sisters. We haven't seen each other in 20 something years, but we're going to
Yeah.
continue joking around about stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's not all business. It's just, oh, ha 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 ha, that's funny. Oh,
Yeah.
you're a jerk. Yeah, you are too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
siblings.
Mhm. I for sure think another good thing they did was making her story different from Natasha's, which I think kind of a thing that you risk falling into with two characters that are so similar. Like, they've both gone through the Red Room. Like, I'm pretty sure that like Yelena's superhero name is White Widow. Like, they're
Yeah.
very, very, very similar. But she's gone through some very different
Yeah.
things, and they're not just like carbon copies story wise, and you can be interested in both stories because they're different.
Yeah. I'm looking up her superhero name.
I feel like is White Widow, but I don't know.
Oh,
I could be
fun
wrong.
fact. Her name is Yelena Fenendrova Belova.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it's
That's very Russian.
long.
Good grief.
Um, do, 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 do. It's, what is the code?
I think
White Widow.
it's a little
White
confusing.
Widow.
Okay. I feel like she's been in the comics, she's been Black Widow before, but mostly if they were around at the same time, because sometimes it's confusing. One superhero kind of disappears for a minute, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Maybe
she, like, it's
one
possible
year
that,
gave her the
yeah,
White Widow.
yeah, it's possible that Natasha could have disappeared from the comics for a minute, and Yelena could have said, "Okay, I'm Black Widow now." But yeah, when there were both of them hanging around, she would be White Widow, and Natasha was Black Widow.
which you can almost see in like the end of the movie. You
Mhm.
know, Natasha
Yeah.
started out with her black suit, and then
Mhm.
they both had white suits,
Mhm.
right? They both had black suits. Now they both have white suits, and
Mhm.
then Natasha switches back to having her black suit, and Yelena has her
Mhm.
white suit, and that's what
Mhm.
they stick to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you can almost see the hint to White Widow, Black Widow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think most likely she'll turn like kind of, I don't know, go fully into White Widow and Thunderbolts, because like since it's more of like a superhero team up movie, she'll be more of a superhero, and I feel like most likely she'll get her official name there, but clearly they don't think every superhero needs a name, and they're waiting a long time on some. But I don't
Definitely.
know. I feel like that would be a good place to be like, hey, White Widow.
Yeah, and I feel like Hawkeye taught us a lot about her as well, not just the Black Widow.
Mm-hmm. Oh
Um,
my goodness, yeah.
because she loved her sister so much, she wanted to kill her sister's best friend because she thought it was his fault that her sister
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
Um, and she did come around, but we know
Yeah.
she's not a vengeful person.
Mm-hmm.
So simultaneously, she was taking orders, and because of Falcon Winter Soldier, we know the person she was taking orders from is evil.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
like, the person she's taking orders from is trying to kill all the Avengers and everyone associated
Mm-hmm.
with them
Yeah.
by using them.
Yeah.
Um, kind of reform the evil Avengers. We'll see what happens with that. But
Yeah.
um, you definitely get to know her where she's like, uh, oh my gosh, what's the character you dressed up as? Kate,
Kate Bishop.
Kate Bishop. Kate
Kate
Bishop.
Bishop.
Hello, Kate Bishop. And yes, I'm saying your name again and again so that you know I know it. Like, Kate Bishop.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, have you ever had
Oh my God.
macaroni with hot sauce? Very good.
That whole scene
Kate
is
Bishop.
immaculate. I
It,
love that.
it was. And then the whole thing in the elevator was just, you're
Yeah.
just wearing your suit under.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the only
It's so
one.
funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're battling
That.
each other. We want to kill each
Yeah.
other, but we
Yeah.
have similarities. So
Yeah.
you see,
It's
like,
so funny.
I
They
don't
have like.
want to be evil. I want to be fun, and I want to have
Yeah.
fun.
They have very similar vibes, but also different kind of personalities. Like I was saying before, Kate Bishop leans into that more kind of spunky, tough, like, all right, kind of no
Young.
nonsense. Huh?
She's so young.
Yeah, that's true. And then Yelena is she's just kind of usually more upbeat, even though she has like a very sad backstory and all that. She's just kind of a like that's just kind of who she is. She's just kind of fun. She's upbeat and she wants to have a good time and eat her macaroni and cheese. You know?
With hot sauce.
Yeah, with hot sauce, of course.
Yeah, I feel like that's
Yeah.
definitely an accurate evaluation of Yelena.
Mhm. Okay. So, before we head out, just if you had to give this movie like a star rating out of 5 stars, and you are allowed to do decimals, what would you do?
Ooh, out of 5,
Mhm.
4.65.
That's very specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not quite a 5 because I just feel like, there are the little things every fan sees here and there that they wish
Yeah.
was done differently.
For sure. Yeah.
And things I wish were resolved and we had the answers to.
Yeah.
But overall, I was happy with it. I loved it. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Um, I think I have okay, you guys, this is nerdy, but I have a book that I keep. I have written down like I write down all the movies I watch and I give them a rating, and I'm pretty sure I give this one
I've seen
a
it. She
4.
does.
I do. I think I give this one a 4. It's usually like a 0.5 or whatever, and so I gave this one a 4 because it is very, very fun, and just a good time, great backstory, great story, all of that. Not quite a 5, as you said, just because it's not quite there, just like super, super awesome, but it is a very, very good movie.
Yeah, and there are so many major things in it that were unresolved. In a
Yeah.
way, just with all the other widows and Melina and Alexei and
Yeah. For
Straykov
sure.
dead. All we saw were his glasses. Like,
Yep.
can I have some clarification, please?
For sure.
All I want.
But
And then you have a 5.
yeah. But overall, I think we can clearly see we are both very happy with it.
We might
All
be
right.
slightly biased, but we're very happy.
Okay, so yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. We went pretty long.
We did.
But there was a lot to talk about. It was fun. Thank you, Mckayla, for being on this podcast again. Very nice, very fun. You guys, go ahead and follow, keep up with the episodes, and tell us your thoughts, give us your star rating. What would you say? And make sure to say why, because we don't want to just be like, 3.
It's a 3.
Tell me why. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, why? We want to dive into your psyches. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but so, yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Peace.